Obviously, adopting the technology, firstly, is a must. It has to be done.
If people want to future-proof themselves, then they should learn more about AI technology and coding as well.
I'm conscious that some people look at this and go, oh my goodness, am I going to lose my job?
If I counter that, do you think there might potentially be a skills gap in that sense for those types of tasks?
The strength going forward is the lawyers that build the personal brands that are authentic. It makes you much more the master of your own destiny this way.
Today we're sitting down with Rich Fox, fractional general counsel and senior in-house legal consultant. We talk about where the future of law is heading and how to future-proof yourself.
The strength going forward is the lawyers that build the personal brands that are authentic and that ultimately differentiate themselves from those robots by the strength of their own personality, their gregarious nature, their interpersonal skills, all the things that back, say, in the 1980s, 1990s were really almost unheard of in law. And now you've got this situation where you can basically take on the robot and beat it. Because the main thing is that lawyers, the person is going to be able to go into a room and actually engage in humour, commercial knowledge. It's going to have empathy. It's going to be able to show an emotional intelligence, all things that a robot will not be able to do for years and years to come. And so whilst AI is a threat, actually it's a massive opportunity for the lawyers that are ahead of the game and can see that.
It's so powerful. I think we're sitting in this era now where we are on the precipice, or we're already in it, this huge, huge change with AI. And I think we're going to see the tides part here with the people who really harness this and realize what strengths they need to cultivate in order to survive and thrive in this new era, and those who just get left behind. And I think what you're talking about is really future-proofing yourself. And I find this fascinating because I completely agree with you. We're moving from this era where we're completely dependent on firms to, if you like, as lawyers, feed us. It's like, give us the work, look after us, to actually empowering ourselves through our personal brand. And for any lawyer who doesn't think they are, they really need a reality check. And what we're talking about here is it doesn't matter whether you want to be in big law or in-house or a consultant or whatever, but by building your personal brand, you are making yourself almost invincible. Would you agree with that, Rich?
Absolutely. I think in part, in building your personal brand, you are making yourself indispensable to the actual clients directly. And you're taking the law firms and the middlemen out of the equation because you can talk directly to those clients and they come directly to you. Then gone are the days where whether or not you got promoted or you made partnership in a law firm are down to a partner's view of you, objective or otherwise, or a middleman acting as a conduit between you and the client, understand, whether or not they understand you as an individual, and perhaps they don't, whether they understand your strengths and weaknesses, perhaps they don't. And if you can actually cut through that, if you can speak directly to the client, because they can see you for who they are and they can form their own opinions. The problem a lot of the time for people is they don't get the opportunity. People put them in pigeonholes, people assess them in one way. And as soon as people do that, then that tends to stick, rightly or wrongly. I think it makes you much more the master of your own destiny this way. That's the key thing, really. That's the bit that's massively empowering. It's in your hands rather than somebody else's. Now that we're in the world that we are and that success has gone from this objectively defined thing to something that's more subjective in the eye of the individual that's out there with the customer, you can actively now utilize your personality and your gregarious nature to win customers. And there's nobody in the middle there that's seeking to fetter it or put it into a perspective that isn't true to suit their own needs. So if they want to overcome that, there's one way in order to do that, and that's to look to perhaps move to disrupt a market where you can build your own brand, free the shackles when you've got enough experience, and then look to increase the independence in the way that I have from being in-house to then perhaps being a consultant in the future, if that's what you want to do. I've found it really empowering. And I know where I've come from, and I wouldn't go back there for all the money in the world. As we've touched on, people shouldn't be intimidated by AI. It will only ever be a slave, providing individuals don't allow it to be a master. You don't allow it to be a master by being the master of your own destiny and building your own personal brand. If you do that, you've got a future-proof career.
I've wasted hours drafting contracts in my business. I've used clunky templates, even written from scratch, looked into paying lawyers. I've even tried ChatGPT, but it just didn't hit the mark. I knew there had to be a better way. And then I found this, Counsel, an AI contract drafter built by lawyers for lawyers. I spoke to the team at Counsel and they use it for their own legal work, and they're improving it every single day based on real life feedback. It actually does the heavy lifting for you. It researches your jurisdiction's laws and nuances and picks up local drafting quirks and even matches your tone and style. It then builds a ready-to-edit Word document with hyperlinks, numbering and a table of contents. It's so quick. I was so impressed when I used it. What I love about it is you can ask it to draft any contract you like, and it will even give you suggestions for appropriate terms or clauses that you'd never even think of. If you're still spending hours drafting contracts the old way, you don't have to anymore. This changed everything for me. If you're a lawyer, business owner, service provider, it might just do the same for you. And Counsel have been kind enough to sponsor this episode, and I'm so excited to spread the word. It's the most sophisticated contract drafting software I've used. To get your free 7-day trial, just go to the description of this episode. Give it a go, and don't forget to let me know how it changes your workflow. In this conversation, I'm interviewing the founder of Garfield Law, Philip Young, and I ask the questions that everyone wants the answers to. How do they avoid AI hallucinations? What safeguards are in place for clients? Will this replace lawyers? You're going to want to hear this one. I mean, this goes to one of the points that I have been saying over and over again to people who, well, particularly lawyers who are scared about AI taking over and are actually scared about this type of business model in actual fact, because they say, well, what about the people? You're going to be taking jobs away from people. And I say, well, in actual fact, this is an opportunity for lawyers to start to upskill themselves and develop in these other areas and become more human, so that they're the go-to people for human things, human related law that AI can't possibly do right now anyway. So I think that the opportunity is there, as opposed to it being a risk to jobs. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, I'm conscious that some people look at this and go, oh my goodness, am I going to lose my job? And I think not. I've been thinking about this a lot for the last 2 years, and I think not. I think there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, human nature. So obviously, I was a litigator, not a transactional lawyer. And I think the only circumstance where the litigation ceases to be a big thing is, or any form of contentious work, is if humans suddenly become incredibly honest, reasonable, fair-minded, self-sacrificing individuals. And we've not seen much evidence of that in the 100, 200,000 years where humans have been about. And I don't see much evidence of that happening in the future. So I think that is a fundamental driver of the fact that people have disputes. And so that will continue. What I think AI will do is it will drive out of the law a lot of what I call the less attractive work, the sort of work that no one really likes doing. So the very time-intensive administrative tasks. And I can think back to when I was a trainee and I did giant disclosure exercises, and that was in the days where it was all paper and pen rather than on relativity and stuff. And it was really painful. And, you look forward to getting more experienced and moving away from that and moving more into the better quality stuff, the strategy, the client management, those, the thinking about the case, formulating case, those sorts of things. I think a lot of that sort of drudgery almost will go. So disclosure exercises, giant doc review, just administrative tasks that don't actually add much value, but they have to be done, and they make claims awfully more expensive. What that will mean is that lawyers will be able to focus on the higher value quality work, I think, which is what we all ultimately came into the profession to do. Because I don't know any lawyer who came in and said, what I really want to do is sit in a conference room and look at 10,000 documents for 2 weeks. I don't know, or do a giant due diligence exercise. I think the implication of that, though, is that if a lot more claims across the entire world of contentious work become, over time, a lot more economic to do, is that a lot more claims will be brought. And so there's one factor that pushes down and one factor that pushes up. And so I'm therefore sort of an optimist. I think what will happen is that there'll still be, the same, maybe even more work about, but what lawyers will be doing is focusing on better quality work, higher quality work, adding real value. And as we've been talking about, developing other sorts of skills that will also complement their day job.
True. Although, if I counter that, I think the jobs that are being done, well, can be done by AI, and probably in the future will be done by AI moving forwards. Well, I guess a lot of firms will catch up. Those were the jobs that gave me the core grounding and core skills, even sending complaint emails or letters that your AI is creating, me writing them from scratch, and at a time when I didn't use Google, I didn't have any type of device that would help me formulate it. I had to literally come up with it from my own brain.
Yeah.
That's what developed my skills and helped me become good at what I did, and actually helps me now, even though I'm out of law. So will there be kind of do you think there might potentially be a skills gap in that sense for those types of tasks?
I think what happens is that the skills change. So instead of sort of learning how to sort of write certain types of correspondence, you wouldn't need to worry so much about that, because the system will do a very good first draft, maybe as technology develops better than that even, for you. And so you don't have to sort of learn how to do it from scratch. And so you lose that skill, but you gain other skills instead. I'm always reminded when I think about this so when I was a youngster, one of my summer jobs was I sold ice cream in Chatsworth House in Derbyshire, because I'm a country boy lad from Derbyshire originally.
I love Chatsworth. It's such a
Chatsworth's lovely. Yeah. Go immediately. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
And the people I used to work for, that was the old Duke and Duchess, Deborah Mitford and Andrew Cavendish, and they were very nice too. They'd always stop and have a chat. But one of the things I noticed when I sold ice cream is that a certain generation would sort of say, why are you doing the maths with a calculator? You should be doing it all in your head. And I would thought to myself, why would I could do it in my head, but it would take time and it'd be hard work. And why would I do that when I've got a calculator here? So I need to get through the customers. And I think it's the same, in general terms, the same concept, which is if you have a tool that does that particular task for you, you can focus on higher level tasks, which of course in that case was trying to persuade people that what they really needed was an ice cream at that moment in time.
Yeah, I think maybe they were hoping that you would miscalculate it and they'd get it for a lower price.
Yeah, maybe. Exactly. Yeah. Which would be a terrible indictment of what I was obviously sharing as being my likely level of maths.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have come up with this idea of people potentially losing jobs from AI, but I think it gives us an opportunity to open up different and new jobs. What about AI compliance experts? These jobs that are not yet necessarily, or they might be created, but they're not common. There are opportunities for different jobs to come into play, right?
Yeah. And I imagine jobs will be invented that we can't even imagine or foresee at the moment because we haven't built the tools to require them. And just in the same way as if you go back to, I don't know, the 1820s or 1810s, before Stephenson had invented his rocket and all of that, your job might be you're going to open the locks on the canal. That's your transportation job. But what you hadn't appreciated is that in a few years' time, you might be stoking a steam engine or driving a steam engine or designing a railway or something. You just couldn't have imagined that would be a thing you'd be doing. So I think it's a very interesting time we live in. And I was reading something the other day over the weekend about apparently the new Pope was talking about AI and how he took his name partly because one of the popes was there for the first industrial revolution and he thinks he's here for the fourth. And I thought, goodness me, maybe he's right. Maybe this is going to be utterly transformational for our civilization.
Yeah, I do feel that, especially when I read the article about, the SRA article, that was what hit me, I think. Do you think that traditional firms, there'll be some sort of pressure on traditional firms to level up and come up with different innovative ideas to not necessarily create a structure like yours, but to use AI and upgrade their tech and make a better service for their clients based on this?
I definitely think firms will evolve, and they have done even in the 25 years I've been in practice. When I think about Well, the firm I trained at, they had a telex operator, a lady who operated the telex, who was sort of sat almost in the loft because it was a shipping insurance firm. So they had to talk to lots of ships. And so they had a telex machine. It was a great bit of technology, made all these sort of funny noises. And in that 25 years, we've moved to the world we're in now. And I think firms will just continue to evolve because that's the nature of business. One of the reasons I've been so keen to build Garfield for law firms as well as for non-law firms is because I've been very conscious that the really big city firms have got enormous resources. They are throwing a lot of money at this. They're building a lot of proprietary tools internally and things like that. But that doesn't apply to smaller practices, and particularly high street practices. And I started in Derbyshire, so a lot of the people I know are partners in high street practices, and they don't have a giant budget for new technology and stuff. So I wanted to sort of try and build something that they could use for themselves that would give them a advantage.
Kyle Torrington, the co-founder of Loft Legal, a tech-driven online law firm, and co-founder of Air Counsel, an AI-powered contract drafter for attorneys. How do you think, in your opinion, that lawyers can, in this sense, future-proof themselves? I have some of my own ideas, but I'd love to hear your ideas.
Well, obviously, adopting the technology, firstly, is a must. It has to be done. I think leveraging off AI technologies that are out there to increase their output, perhaps drop their costs as well to some extent, but augment them to a point where they are provided with, or their output is far better than they would otherwise be able to put out themselves. But with the help of AI, they are able to produce a product which is of a far greater quality. So they just have to, I think, start experimenting with it and start to use the tools. Alternatively, I mean, there's obviously the route of going, well, I'm going to position myself as a lawyer in providing services where the respective law society in my country reserves that work for only humans. So litigation, for example, or something to that effect. That's another way of doing it, where you've got these, for lack of a better word, artificial barriers where AI is just simply not allowed to produce the actual output. They could be involved in the process, but ultimately you have to have a human representing you, for example, during litigation. So that's another strategy to sort of future-proof yourself. But over time, as it becomes more accepted, I don't know if law societies will start to drop those sort of barriers. But then again, they're going to be interest groups from lawyers within the respective countries lobbying to prevent that and protect themselves, which I just don't know how that's going to play out. But that's another strategy, I would think.
I think another thing is basically what you did, but I feel like you did it because you found it fun, but you kind of focused a lot on coding and this tech side because you found it fun, and also law. And I think if people want to future-proof themselves, then they should learn more about AI technology and coding as well.
Yeah, or using, I mean, there's so many what they call vibe coders nowadays where you can develop your own things, gain an interest, not necessarily in the nuts and bolts of the code, but in developing your own products, because you can, like if you go into lovable.com, you can tell it to create an app for you and it'll code up. There are some sort of technical challenges, and the technology has got a bit to go to really cater for lawyers or laypersons from a coding perspective. But you can sort of put up an app over the course of a weekend and have it designed based on natural language. But yes, a genuine interest, I think, in AI and where it's going, I think it will place you in a great position to decide how to sort of keep yourself at the forefront of the legal industry and to keep yourself relevant.
If you're a legal tech founder still trying to grow your brand, the reality is this: someone with half your expertise is about to outposition you. And when they do, you don't just lose reach, you lose deals, investors, opportunities, and more. I'm opening exclusive free access to a blueprint I've never shared publicly. If you want to become law firm's go-to legal tech solution, you'll need to become the leading authority. I explain exactly how in my blueprint. Go to the description of this episode to get it sent straight to your inbox now.